Hey y'all, how are you? This is the Blossom and Brew podcast. I am one of your hosts, Regine L. Sawyer, coordinator and founder of the Women's Comics Collective International. And I'm also the writer, publisher at Lock It Down Productions. And I'm here with my illustrious co host.
Hi, I'm Ilka Panero. For some reason, I thought you were going to say it. I just bugged out for a sec. Hello, everybody. This is Ilka Panero. I am the founder of the Ilka Panero, which is a one-stop shop for all sorts of metaphysical treats. Think of it as an energy gym. We teach folks there how to activate their intuition, how to access and strengthen their critical thinking, as well as their metaphysical muscles, so your energy body. We communicate with animals. We offer Reiki healing. I'm also a writer and a performer, and based in Brooklyn for the moment. Um, for the moment. So, yeah, hello, and welcome, and thanks for joining us. Here we are.
Here we are.
Hmm
What
hmm
a week. But I feel like we say, like, what a week every week.
It's also only Wednesday.
It's also only Wednesday, and but if we're doing like a week from each Wednesday
True.
we do a
That's true.
show,
That's true.
there's just so much in these strange times. So how are you doing? How are you faring out here? Because I know there's a lot of
Um,
things you wanted to talk about in terms of stuff that's been popping up.
it's just so interesting to me. Again, as usual, some more about what this time, what this year, what this pandemic, what this Black Spring is bringing up in people and how it's amplifying and how it's just like amplifying people's everything, right? And it just feels real jarring in a lot of ways, you know, like because people are really not at their best. People are really not at their best, and it's interesting to see like how someone not necessarily being at their best translates, because for some people being not at their best is like, neglecting to, like wrap their hair up. And so they have to get like, a little extra their hair cut off, right? For some people, being not at their best is like storming a Subway sandwich shop with an AK-57. And those things feel real different to me, and it's just like a whole gamut. Like, it's just very fascinating to see the ways in which we are being shown our own asses by this
True.
experience and by this year, in a real collective sense, and some people, uh, in a lot of ways, have done perhaps a more thorough job making sure their ass is clean, if we're going to follow that metaphor, Um, and some people's asses are absolutely fucking
Okay.
filthy and stinky and disgusting, and we're just like, all right, here we go. And like, that could be argued as a judgment, and yet I feel like we can all basically agree, that having like a clean ass is preferable to having one that's covered in shit. So that's neither here nor there. But to hone in on some things in the ways in which I think we've been shown our own asses is this conversation that's popped up yet again. It feels like it pops up every few years about AAVE. So, for those of you listening who don't know what that is, that stands for African American Vernacular English. That is what was once called Ebonics, if you remember that when that popped up in the 90s.
Yeah.
Um, so the most recent conversation around it has now become this thing where all of these people, who quite frankly have no fucking right speaking it, have decided to come out and like make statements about what they think it is. So there's first of all an enormous piece of erasure here that has always been in existence with AAVE. Um, well, no, that's not true. It hasn't always been in existence. It has come up since the advent of the social media with Twitter and with like more so TikTok. And there is this trend, I guess we'll call it. I hope it's that because trends die, and I hope this dies, of what we call like digital blackface. And one
Mm,
of the more benign kind of ways, that might not be the best word to apply to this, but I guess one of the less harmful, maybe, ways of using it is just like people who would use gifs or gifs, however you say that word, that would be of Black people, right? So like if you're here and you're Molly and you're chilling in Arkansas, like why are you using the gif of like the Black girl crying when you're not Black? So that was kind of like part of like sort of the whisper of the conversation of digital blackface, right? And it's gotten louder in terms of this thing where you have these people on TikTok who are, you know, using these cadences and these, you know, modes of communication, frankly, speaking in a different dialect, you know, speaking in this dialect, and it like doesn't, it makes me very uncomfortable whenever I see that happen. What has been in existence the whole time, at least in my experience, or my experience of Black people, is this thing where they, where it's like, to them, it's some way of like bonding with me. So like somebody that you would know, that you just know on site, would never drop, you know, their ER or anything like that, or never throw like an extra like B in front of a verb or whatever. You know, for some reason they see me and all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, sister girl, oh my God, I can't believe we blind. It's, you know, like I had this, I mentioned her before. I've mentioned her before, this chiropractor that I worked for very briefly, who was just like problematic in every single way you could ever consider. This one day we're sitting there, we're working, you know, no, that's a lie. I was working. She was wasting my time. So like I'm there and I'm doing things and she goes, and she literally says to me the following. She goes, oh my God, this weekend I watched Think Like a Man to get in touch with my inner sister.
No,
looked at, yes, she did. Yes, she did. And my shadow really wants to call out her motherfucking name and her business right now, but I'm not going to do it. So she did that, and I looked at her like she was the roach that she is. Like I was just like, ew. Like, and I was like, okay, Suzanne, because that's her name. I was like, okay, Suzanne, and just look back at the computer. And like, I was just like, why would you ever say that? First of all, and like there were so many layers to it, because first of all, Think Like a Man is a garbage movie. That's a number one. That purports some really wildly patriarchal and misogynistic ideas. And so the fact that she obviously equated that, right, with like Blackness in some way and her inner sister. So your inner sister, Suzanne, is somebody who's out here trying to think like a man, Suzanne McBride, chiropractor, racist, right? Allegedly. So, you know, because she's also the type of Becky that'll be litigious and be like, you libeled me on your podcast. So alleged, whatever. So it's been things like that, you know, for like my whole experience, where it's just kind of like, and I just look at them like, would you speak like that to anyone who wasn't Black? Do you talk like that all the time? You know, and then there's like, and listen, I understand that AAV is extremely compelling. I understand that it sounds cool. I understand that motherfuckers wish they could speak it, but it's like a lot of things. You know what? You motherfuckers can speak AAVE when I can walk down the street and not have to be in fear for my life in some very low polyvagal fucking, you know, like instinctive level, because any bullshit could happen. When I feel safe anywhere, when there is no situation that I can walk into when it feels high risk just because I'm a Black woman, then you motherfuckers can start talking AAV. How about that? So I say all that to say, there was this whole conversation on Twitter and in like the larger sort of, I guess, cultural kind of educational and discussion realm, where this erasure, where it's just like, oh, it's tweet speak, or oh, that's how, like, you know, that's like TikTok conversation, or this is just the way, you know, like we talk on these websites. And like a really great example of it is Chile. CHILE.
Oh, Iron Man.
Hi. Hello.
They thought we were saying Chile.
They thought we were saying fucking Chile. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And then that ties into this whole thing. We're like, oh, it's new. No. My grandma, for how long have old Black ladies been calling children child?
For hundreds of years.
Thank you. And I'm just like, just because you jokesters are only just hearing about it does not mean it's new. It's just new to you because you don't pay attention to anything that isn't something that you have already stolen or is bland. And so somebody over the course of the weekend made like a legend or like some sort of translation table. And I don't even know if it's new or if it just, again, is getting floated around again, where they like took all the things and it was like, oh, cool equals whatever. And blah, blah, blah equals. And I was like, somebody wasted their black ass time doing this and translating this shit for these people that really, quite frankly, don't have any, to me, like, what do you do? What right do you have to use this? And it's just another thing of appropriation and culture vulturism. And once again, erasing where it came from because people love not giving black people their props. They love not giving black folks, their due accolades for coming up with shit. And it's just like, I'm so tired of this story over and over again. We saw it with the cornrows. We saw it with the bodies. We saw it with the dance moves. It's just like, man, I'm just going to sit here at my house and just channel Paul Mooney for one quick second because, wow.
Well, it's an evolution, isn't it? I mean, throughout the years, we've been watched and emulated and all those things. And folks outside of us have monetized off of it. Or just done things just to be cool. It's like you want the culture, but you don't want us.
Every time.
It stems from all of that. And I'm like, don't give anybody any legend about how we speak. Speak to us like we're human beings and call it a day. Speak in the quote unquote King's English and call it a day. Don't communicate with me in AVVE. Don't do it.
It's so embarrassing. It's so embarrassing to see. It's so embarrassing to watch. Like there's this person on this like comedian that like he posts these things on Instagram. I'm not going to say his name because I actually do like him. But he did this thing where it was like he sort of skewed it where he was like, yes, this is how like, people talk on Insta or on like Twitter or whatever. And it was just like, hey, girl, bitch, sister, faggot, bitch, sister, what? Oh, my God, yas. And he's like, and it was interesting because I was like, okay, so you're making fun of those people, but do you actually know the origins of the thing that you are making fun of? Because, like, a big part of the argument is like, well, where did it really come from? Like, oh, it's gay culture. Oh, it's blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that's black women and black LGBTQIA people. Stop it.
Yeah.
Again. Your great-great-grandma called your great-grandma when they was little child. You better fucking believe it. It's not Chile. It's not, I mean, it's just, like I said, it's embarrassing. There are so many things that are enacted upon us as black people that if they weren't so goddamn infuriating, it would be just humiliating.
Well, you know what I also was thinking
enacting it. What?
I also was thinking of the fact that if you were ever forced to read Huckleberry Finn, in high school, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he put child in there.
Probably.
Along with, other parts of the vernacular of the time. And so when I'm hearing folks say oh, you're talking about Chile and blah, 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 and this, that, and third. And, some of these folks are American. And I'm like, you never read Huckleberry Finn?
Bro.
But I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to lie. I have a confession to make. When I first read, I think, Waiting to Exhale by Terry McMillan was the first time I had ever seen child written out. I thought it was Chile.
Wow.
I did. But I was young. Reading Waiting to Exhale. I was young. I was probably about 14. But that's my first time seeing it actually, like, written out.
You know what? I'm going to let that ride.
I read Huck Finn probably when I was 17.
Right.
Or 16.
So, but my question for you is just because I'm curious, even prior to 14 though, hadn't some old black lady called you child?
Of course. The whole family.
So you just had to do like the context bridge.
Yeah.
Of the hearing it to the reading it. Okay.
Yes. Because I was an avid reader,
Sure, yes.
I was an avid reader. I love books, read the dictionary, even though I don't pronounce words as wonderfully as I should,
Well,
Ilka.
no, that's how you know that that's how you know that a person has learned a word from reading.
I'm well read. So I'm so
Yes.
well read that I thought it was chili. And and that's child. It's the
You wish.
truth. But it's true. It's
No,
true.
yeah. I mean, I believe you. I totally believe you. Yeah, I feel like I think well, my confession is when I first read "Their Eyes Were Watching God," that was hard for me, because
Oh yeah.
because of
I
the
read it in
way
school too.
when she purposely wrote it that way. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like that is like she was like, "Yup," and this is the
Right.
dialect, as it were.
At that
Um,
point I realized it was child and not chili.
well, yes, but and I remember, and by the time I read it, I was already in these, like predominantly white institutions, blah blah blah, and so that was a very interesting experience as well to be
You
like,
were? I read it in high school.
oh well, no, girl, but I was in. Nah, they threw me in with girl, they threw me in that vanilla ice cream by sixth grade.
That's what, yeah, correct.
You know, so they were just like, deal with it,
Yeah.
throwing you to the wolves because that means something because that's in some way like that's better. So
Mhm.
anyway, so I read it in high school as well, but by then it was I was sadly accustomed to being the only chocolate chip. Um, and so we're in this class and we're reading it, and I first encountered it and was like, oh, this is okay. And I remember the first night we got it assigned. It might have even been a thing where they assigned it over the summer, and I was like, okay, this is going to be one of those situations where I'm going to be the only one in the room, and I don't know what kind of risk that's going to invite, but I know that it's going to be something just because of the way whiteness works. So let me figure out this book, And so I spent like a good 2 3 weeks over the course of the summer, just like kind of hacking through it and like getting those parts of my brain turned on to like be able to, hear it in my brain. And there was a lot of like reading it out loud and finding the cadences that made sense. And I'm so grateful to like the past version of me who was a friend to like the future past version of me at that part of my life, because once I got to that school, hearing and seeing and just like experiencing all those white kids struggle with that book, like it was perversely, not perversely, it just was very vindicating to me, because it was a thing where I remember I got into this argument with this kid, was this like this whatever, this kid. And he was just like talking about how difficult it was and blah, 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 and all this and all that. And of course, it was this racist bent and these things and whatever and all this stuff. And I was just like, and I remember equating it somehow to like Shakespeare or something. And I just remember saying something like, well, it tracks that you would have such difficulty with it, Ben, because wasn't Shakespeare such a slog for you too? Like it was that kind of thing where, like even at that young age, I had already started getting practice in how to shade them, in that way, that like very kind of pretentious, like highbrow way. Like I'm not really shading you, but I absolutely am. So it's just like, I'm going to call into question your intelligence.
Well, that's so interesting. And I've never thought about it like that. Like we open up these various different books, especially when you're in school, and a lot of them are written in a way in which that cannot easily be deciphered.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never considered the fact that we have books in American literature that can be received in a similar way.
Mm-hmm.
You open it and like, I don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Yep.
you know, and because when we look at Shakespeare and other lords from the past that are
Mm-hmm.
not from American literature, it's like, oh, here's this wonderful writer, amazing writer, famous writer. Oh yes, we have to translate it. Get your clip notes, everyone. You know, language. Oh my gosh, really, truly. But we never do that for our own, because, like you said, you're opening, their eyes are watching God, or even opening Huckleberry Finn, and you're like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Or you're opening Roots.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a bunch of other books that I could name, especially when you get to that point of American literature in high school, where you're like, I don't know what they're talking about, but you never looked at it as this is something that's so elite and upper echelons. You don't, in terms of the writing,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh, there's that American drivel. There
Mm-hmm.
are those that
Mm-hmm.
slave talk.
Mm-hmm.
Slaves were illiterate and they couldn't speak, so now we got to chop up their dialect. for for this novel. Never looked at it like that. Like, well, this is American literature, and it's beautiful. It's depicting, the lives of folks where things were pretty awful,
Mm,
but it's being done in this artful way. Like we don't. I've never looked at it like that.
mm-hmm, mm. I mean, it was one of those. I realize now that it was an absolute like shade download.
No, that
Like
was.
some ancestor came in and was like, "Pss, pss, pss, pss," and I was like, blah, 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 blah. And it was one of those ones where like I remember he got real red in the face, and it was the kind of thing where I was like, keep your face neutral, Ilka, because it's like you can't give it away. Like you can't give away that like what you've done. Um, I have to say that whenever I get that opportunity with a person who is really aligned with and like enacting toxic whiteness, it is very satisfying. It's really, really satisfying. And that actually leads me to yeah, that actually leads me to another thing I wanted to talk about, but I want to throw it to you.
No, keep talking.
Well, that leads me to this sort of like larger thing that I've noticed. I mean, that I haven't noticed. It's like very obvious, but my experience with it, my very personal experience lately has been really, what's the word? It feels acute, right? And this thing of people reprimanding Black women, right?
Oh, girl.
People who have this compulsion, yeah,
Yes,
to like
yes.
put a Black woman in her place. And so here are a couple examples. So first of all, a little backstory for y'all. If you haven't heard of a basketball player named Jonathan Isaac, he's a young Black man. He plays for the Orlando Magic, I want to say. He made some news quite recently because they were at a game and every single other player on the team, and I believe I'm going to go so far as to say coaches as well, were all wearing Black Lives Matter t-shirts. They all took a knee. Now, Jonathan Isaac seems to really love Jesus. I'm gonna add a little qualifier here. Jonathan Isaac seems to really love white Jesus.
Well,
So his whole thing, yeah, that's why. Yep, that's why. So his whole thing, because I've checked out his Twitter and it's just, like it's Bible verses and so on and this and that and da 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 da. So at this game, he was the only person to stand. He refused to kneel. He wouldn't even wear the t-shirt. So he's standing there by himself, and it looks, the picture is a striking picture because there he is with all his whatnot and so on and so forth. You know what? Okay, you get to do whatever you want. This is still, in some ways, a free country. If you don't wanna kneel for Black lives, even though you Black, and even though these white folks are not gonna give not one shit about your body beyond whatever money you can make for them, stand up if you want. That's America. So that happened, and his jersey number shot up to like number 2. So just like folks seeing him enact his American right of not kneeling, right? We're so pleased to see this. So they like threw all this money at the NBA to get his jersey. Well, wouldn't you know that in that same game, this man went up to do some sort of shot, and although nobody touched him, he tore the hell out of his ACL. Dude is going to be out for a year. For those of you who don't know, the ACL is in the knee. Sorry, I'm not going to laugh.
man,
So
isn't that
people, so
something?
I'm really working to be neutral here. So people then were like, well, that's ironic. That's not putting anything else on it, right? That's ironic. It's ironic that you, a Black man, chose not to take a knee for Black lives, and your knee got taken. That's irony. So the conversation then around this ironic thing, or maybe it isn't ironic. I might be having an Alanis Morissette moment. It might just be like, that's fucked
No,
up.
it is ironic, but I'm saying I think it's beyond irony. But continue.
Yes. So that, right, yes. And the beyond part started to become a conversation wherein folks were like, well, I guess Black Jesus did that, or I guess an ancestor did that, or because it was just like it was just like it was too. You couldn't script it. Like you could not have scripted that. And so there was this meme that went around that was him holding his knee. And somebody had spliced together the picture of him holding his knee and that picture that we've all seen of like Martin Luther King, and he's kind of laughing, and they did the treatment so that he sort of looks like the ghost of Mufasa in the sky.
Oh no, 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 no,
Mm-hmm.
it
So it
didn't.
looks like the ghost of Martin Luther King Jr. is looking down at this dude who got his knee fucked up. So I saw that and I was like, I have to share this. So, because I was like, I mean, I didn't make the meme. Men didn't even have like, a watermark. I didn't like necessarily do like the metadata on the meme, whatever. I may have not done my due diligence to like credit whomever with this meme maker was. So I just like yoinked the shit and put it on my Instagram stories. And this dude I know came in to my DMs talking about I actually don't think it's particularly cool that you would make fun of a person's, like life-changing injury. And I said, you're free to feel your feelings. I'm just saying that it's mighty ironic that so-and-so and so-and-so. And I left it at that. So I was like, it's fascinating to me that this person had whatever feelings they had about a thing that I posted that to whatever degree was making its rounds. But they decided that they were well within their rights to come and reprimand me, right? For a comment about somebody's karma coming for them. And I find that very interesting because I'm just like, okay, I feel like I may have been the only person that you have seen this from, but there are other people who have done this. And would you have reprimanded those other people? And what the fuck makes you think that you have a right to reprimand me? Mm-hmm. And what I find very interesting is I see things on people's timelines. I see things that I'm like, and you know what I do? I keep fucking scrolling.
Yes.
I keep scrolling because what you do, what you find amusing, what you want to share, doesn't have shit to do with me. So that leads me to another conversation wherein some man in my life decided that he was in a position to chastise and reprimand me because I posted something that he decided he had a feeling about, that he decided was somehow about him. And so therefore, he was well within his rights to, again, attack me to try to put me in my place. And I'm like, so you motherfuckers don't see the misogynoir here. No, we don't see the patriarchy. No, we don't see the how dare you have a right to say a thing that makes me feel a way that isn't excellent because you're a Black woman and I somehow have some weird conditioning or some story in some part of my DNA that your job, you are here existing only to be of service to me, to make me feel good, to make me feel safe, to be a bed warmer, to be a mammy, to be a whatever, to be a guide until you die. And if you don't do that, you have to be punished. And none of this is new. And it's just fascinating to see the way that it is still being enacted, particularly by people who, if they would hear this, be like, oh, I would never, but you did.
Yes. Yes. I mean, it happens.
Right.
Go ahead. No,
I'm done. You go.
It happens way too much. And it's definitely a part of, we mentioned the pillars last week, part of the pillars of disparity, where people feel like they can correct Black women, also women in general, but definitely Black women, and there'll be no repercussions from it.
Right.
Like they're not going to get checked and all this stuff. They think they have some sort of right to do it because they get in their feelings, or sometimes it's also because it's something that they resonate with. You know, like, well, I got injured and it wasn't funny. I mean, I guarantee you, that was in somebody's heart, and they're like, yo, it's not funny because I had my ACL torn too, or I broke my toe when I was tossing a basket, and it's like, well, we're not talking about you though. We're talking about this dude who's being disrespectful to Black lives. Like, we're not talking about you, honey. But it's the truth. But that's usually truth. I mean, I, I'm trying to think about if I experienced that with men. I think maybe on some,
Of course you
maybe on
have.
some level I have,
Of
but I
course you
mostly,
have. You
I,
just can't think of an example right
I
now.
can't, but I often experience it with white women.
You know what's so funny is, and I love that you said people when you were like people do this because I've experienced it with all kinds of women, including black women.
Hmm.
Like what just happened to me right now that we were talking
Yeah,
about before we got on this.
yeah.
Well, I'm just like, wow, people are fucking miserable, man.
It is. Or this is again. It's something. Usually, it's something reflective of themselves. When
Always.
someone gets in your, well, you have a lot of stories, like gets in your DMs, like, well, I'm not sure, like you posted something and I don't know how I feel about it. Well, I'm like, I don't care.
Right. It's like, oh, perhaps you should DM somebody who gives a fuck about your feelings. You
Or,
could book a session and we could talk about your feelings, but stop
or,
asking me to do shit for you for free.
or you can just work it out in your own space. It has
Right.
nothing. It has nothing to do with me. I just what you saw triggered something within you, and that this is an opportunity for you to do some unraveling within yourself of why
Hmm.
certain things are bothering you and why you even feel the desire to reach out to somebody and be like, oh well, maybe you shouldn't. I'm like, look, there's other folks DMs you belong in. Look at all these racist people. Look at all these misogynist
Hey,
people.
hey.
Look at what's happening to our country. As a whole, look at what's happening to our world. Like, email your senators,
Hmm.
message your congressman. Don't send this nonsense to my DMs.
Right.
You
Right.
know, but you think you have some type of power over me, so therefore you can get some type of result.
Hmm.
No, no. Put your words where they're really needed, not over here.
And the thing that is hilarious to me is that they get a result, but it's not the result they want. So that's the thing is like when people do things like this, like, oh boy the other day, oh boy the day before, or, whatever, oh girl, blah, blah, blah. Like there's always a part of me that's like, what result did you think this was going to get you? Like what? Like you never had at no point in the time between you seeing this thing being triggered and decided you had a right to come and say something to me. And at no point there did you ever think about the fact that I get to have the response I have. You get to have the response you have, okay, but then I get to respond to your response. So what did you think it was going to be? What did you think I was going to do? What did you think? Oh my God, you're so right. It was so mean of me to do this. I'm going to take it down immediately. How about no? How about I said what I said? How about I posted what I posted? How about you can unfollow? How about that?
Yeah,
How
I,
about you
that,
don't have to look at my stories? How about you can lose my number? How about in the year 2020, the year that we figure out and decide what is essential for ourselves? How about we decide we're not essential to each other? How about you no longer deserve me in your life? How about all those responses?
I mean,
How about now you're dead to me?
I don't think folks consider that. I don't think
Clearly.
I don't think that's a consideration. I think the law process is like, oh, here's an opportunity to enlighten. Here's an opportunity to help. Here, let me bring this to their attention because maybe they don't realize, this is something that may not be healthy. And then at the same time, they're not realizing that their reaction or their behavior isn't.
I think that's an incredibly generous take on it.
Well, I mean,
This
no,
whole
but
thing is
well,
educating and enlighten. I don't think it's that. I don't even think it's that.
I'm just saying that's what I think people think they're doing.
Oh, I don't even think people think they're doing that.
That you think that folks they're just complaining. They just want to do it.
I think folks feel like, you know, like there has been a transgression and it is their job to what? Police me or you. It's control. It's you have stepped out of the box that I am comfortable perceiving you in, and I have to do what I have to do to shove you back in that box. And I'm sure it's unconscious for some people because they're all caught up in, oh, I am offended. And it'll be the first motherfucker to do some shit that's mad offensive.
I'm sure.
It's always the first person who was quick to just come out their face with something.
I'm sure. I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure. I'm inclined to believe that it's both what I said and what you said, and
Mm.
maybe yours is way more often than what I
Right.
said. But I could
I will concede. I don't think yours never happens. I am not in a position to believe that it happens when a black woman is on the receiving end of it,
No,
or
well,
when most women are on the receiving end of it.
well, I mean, let's talk about a little bit about what happened with Talib Kweli and this young lady, because we
Ugh.
mentioned it last week. No, well, he's been removed off Twitter permanently.
Well, oh, good. I mean, I actually don't even know if I feel like it's good, but like, okay, did he earn that? Yes. Do I wish that there was like another way to deal with people who behave in that way? Yes. So what's your point though?
I'm. I guess my point was to mention that I guess that was a way of calling it out in a sense of trying to reprimand a black woman.
Oh, well, sure.
That's what I mean.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. So you okay? Because you
that's a
jumped to the
repercussion.
part where he got taken, where he got removed.
Yeah, I think that
Yes.
happened today. Either happened today or last night.
Wow. So this woman had to deal with, what was it, like 2 weeks of abuse before
I
they
think it
finally
was
did
a
it?
month. I think it was a
What?
month.
Well, I have no concept of time, so I believe you.
Someone said a month on Twitter. It's been about a month. I think she's the one that said it. Like, this dude has been harassing me for the past month.
And the thing, and again, perfect, it aligns perfectly. The thing she said didn't have nothing to do with him. She didn't at him. She didn't even allude to him. Just like all these other things. It's just like, I'm saying a thing that I'm saying. And somebody sniffs out, and this is the metaphor I always say. Don't get mad because you see yourself in a mirror somebody holds up. They just
Yes.
holding up the mirror. If you see yourself in that mirror, that's on you. That's on you.
So what can we do? I mean, what can we do?
Start cutting motherfuckers out of our lives? No, that's not healthy.
No,
Okay,
it is
different thing.
healthy. It is healthy. Um, but what should be done? I mean, if black women specifically are getting policed by what we say, what we do, what can we do to combat that?
I mean, I feel like, the shamans always say you want to change the world, change yourself, right?
Yeah.
So my change has been, even in the time of like these transgressions, right? Because like there was the thing that happened when somebody tried to kick the mirror out of my hand because they saw themselves in it like some months ago, right? And then just in the past couple of weeks, that has come up a couple more times, as you know, in like our personal, intimate friend space. So what I have noticed in myself is like when it happened some months ago, um, even in the moment, I found myself, and there are different like circumstances around this particular person and the relationship and so on and so forth. But I found myself going against my impulse because after they send me the whole like, blah, 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 these are all the ways that you fucking suck and you don't count and I'm going to invalidate you, blah, blah, blah. My first response was just to say, okay. And I was going to leave it at that. And for me, like, okay, like if I just respond to anything, like if it's that kind of thing and you just get an O and a K from me, to me, and we're done here. So that was my initial response because the nonsense this person came at me with was so wild that I was just like, I'm not even processing. I'm not even going to give this a moment. It's that version of like, I ain't reading all that, but great, good luck, or sorry that happened to you. Like a version of, it was like my version of that. And then, even though my impulse was to just leave it at that, to let them know in that way that like their response and the way that they were behaving toward me was unacceptable because of the situation and because of my conditioning up until like very recently, right? The thing that I'm just starting to unravel was I then went and like didn't defend myself, but I did express that I was stunned and surprised by the way the person was behaving. So I did the okay. Then a few minutes later, I was just like, actually, this is pretty, it was something to the effect of, you know what? I actually get to post whatever I want to post on my timeline. And if it doesn't apply, you can just let it fly. Like it was that kind of thing. But even that, I was like, why am I giving this time when this ridiculous behavior deserved only okay? And so what has happened in the subsequent weeks, right, since that relationship has dissolved, is I have become much more comfortable with like, okay,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Like I have a whole paragraph that I could tell you, but you're not worth it. And that's what it is. You're not worth it. You're not worth the labor that it would take, even though it's not that much labor, but you're not worth the energetic output of me responding to this bullshit in any lengthy way. You're not worth my intellectual or emotional labor of like trying to figure out what the fuck. Right. And so I think when posed the question of like, what do we do? It's what do we individually do to, it's like a solar plexus chakra question a little bit, right? So you know how I always talk about how like I'm looking for this new language around the solar plexus chakra, and it's, does the way you show up for yourself internally match the way you show up for yourself externally? And so that's where I've been coming from it, or coming at it, that way. No, that's the place from which I have been coming at it. Yes. Is how can I keep those things, like how do I keep those things, like how do I make the window two ways, or how do I make that internal mirror two ways? And so for me, it's in those situations when I feel like a person really comes at me out they fucking face, how do I express in a way that is not, my therapist tells me this amazing thing, that's not judging or arguing or defending or explaining, right? How do I make my stance clear? How do I explain what's going on in my orbit, right? Without making whatever is going on in that other person's orbit wrong or incorrect or bad, even when it feels like it's super fucking wrong and incorrect and bad, right? Like, how do we then, or how do I then, express my truth, right? And boundary, okay, without like reversing the oppressive, energetic that person has attempted to enact upon me. Does that make sense? I hope it
Yeah, it
does.
does. It does. It makes
Okay.
sense.
So really, I think it's just moment to moment. And it is like, okay, how do we not subvert our own rights? How do we reclaim our time? How do we reclaim our energy? Because people are so used to taking, taking from Black women. What did I talk to you about the other day about like one of the other people that got the cut when, the last time I saw them, or like one time I saw them some years ago, they literally were just like pulling at my body. Remember I told you about that? Where it
That's
was like,
insane. Like plucking you.
yes, it was like she like just like on my arm, just like pulling at me. And I just remember being like, what are you doing? And the person was just like, I'm taking your energy. And I wanted to kick her in her fucking throat because I was like, don't do that. Like that, you stop it. Like particularly for me, like particularly like I am a person where like energetic translation and investigation is part of my profession.
Yeah.
And so you are here, you feel so bold, right, as to physically invade my space and obliterate not only an energetic boundary but a physical boundary. That's wild to me.
No, it is.
And then to have the fucking bones to say it, just be like, yes, I'm doing this. So you feel like there's nothing wrong with you doing it. You feel like there's nothing wrong with you doing it. You feel, I can no.
Well, that person had no boundaries. I mean, that's another conversation.
Right. And another thing that I'm working on is that I would invite us all to consider, I guess, is like that thing of, okay, the way we respond to people is a reflection of us. And the way people respond to things we do is a reflection of them. And so when on the receiving end of some trash ass behavior, keeping or what we perceive as trash ass behavior, see, in every moment where it's course correction, right? So like what we perceive as trash ass behavior, how do we then like, okay, or do we then, or how do we cultivate, like new maps, right? Or habits or practices, whatever you want to call it, to not take that shit as personally, right? And just stay in the space of, what, this actually doesn't have anything to do with me.
like,
This actually doesn't have anything to do with me.
it's a lot of stay in your lane.
Yeah.
I think because people feel like they can. Well, these particular types of folks can drive in your lane and
Mm-hmm.
think they can check you, and that could be being in your DMs or sending you a text message. You're like, hey, I think you really shouldn't. It's like, no, take that to your senator, take that to your congressman,
Right.
not me.
And
You
here's the
know,
other thing too is that, and you and I get into this all the time, and not in a bad way, where it's just like there is a way to come to somebody you care about and offer them constructive critique.
yeah, there is. There totally is.
We
Totally
do
is.
it to each other all the time.
Yeah. But that's about intention.
True.
That's about intention. I mean, we kind of discussed that a few minutes ago, um, like in regards to the intention of folks when they're sending you these messages,
Right.
and we differed, but then again, I guess we kind of didn't differ on that. But it is about your intention. What's your intention when you're sending someone a message to
Mm-hmm.
say, hey, I think the post that you posted about the dude that got his knee hurt is really insensitive. Is the intention to let me know that, yo, I think you're being insensitive, or it's like, oh, when I broke my knee, you didn't care, or now I know how you really felt. Like, what exactly, what exactly is the intention?
Mm-hmm.
Because the person that sent you that message, he obviously wasn't looking deeper. It's like, did you even look at this situation? What happened?
Well, I will say this to his
Okay.
credit.
Okay.
He corrected that real quick.
Okay.
Like, so I said what I said, and then it was silence for a couple hours, and then he came back with something completely unrelated. And it feels to me like in that silence, like a moment was taken. And of all the people that have like come at me wild, he is the one where I'm like, yeah, we will continue to rock, you know.
I get
Whereas
it.
like those other two, and the chiropractor, like all of the other people who have done things like that to me. I had this revelation the other day. Archangel Metatron literally came to me while I was washing dishes the other day because I was thinking about this thing, and he was like, "Bitch, I got it. I figured out the wording." And I said, "What is it?" Because he is the saint of writers and like wordsmiths and things, and he helps you get your ideas straight.
What's his name?
Metatron. So he shows up in like Judaica. Like he's not so much with the Christians.
No, I hear that name and I think like, oh, he's a transformer.
Yes, I actually think, well, Megatron, yeah, no, that's exactly where whomever wrote that got that from there. Got that from, so MET, like metaphysical, Tron.
Yeah.
Yeah, so replace the G in Megatron with a T.
Wow,
So he rolls up on me and he goes, I figured it out. And I said, what? And he was just like, here's the statement. And the statement is, I'm exhausted by feeling hurt in the same way. I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
I'm exhausted by these. I'm exhausted by feeling hurt and nicked and fucking burnt and singed by whiteness. I'm exhausted. I'm so tired of it.
Yeah.
I'm so tired of it. And I don't even necessarily limit that to white people.
No,
Because
it's not.
as we talked about, it shows up everywhere. It shows up in family. It shows up in friends. It shows up in women. It shows up in, LGBTQ people. It shows up in ourselves.
It sounds like it.
And I'm tired. So I'm like, you know what? Let me create like very sturdy structures and boundaries and conditions. So at the very least, I don't fucking oppress myself. And then if I can do that and get to a place where like the self-oppression is as low as possible, it's going to make it, I have to imagine, easier to identify, right, and enact protection when the oppression comes from the outside. Other than that, I don't really know what else to do except continually cut people out of my life. But I gotta say, for the people that are no longer there, surprisingly, I'm like, eh.
I get that.
I feel like I should be more upset, or I should be having a, and this is me oppressing myself, right? Like this is not just like allowing myself to accept where I am in this moment because it could change, This whole thing of like, shouldn't I be more? Shouldn't I feel? Should I be trying? Does this matter? Like, should I be fighting for this relationship? And it's just like, if you don't have the bandwidth right now, you don't have the bandwidth right now, and let that be okay.
Yes.
And why would you go out of your way to try to repair something that seems so easily broken.
I agree.
So
That's funny.
what do you think? What do you think we can do? What's your answer to your question?
I mean, it's work all around because I mean, yes, for us, number one, you do have to sort of reject the nonsense. So if someone's coming up in your DMs, what I generally do, and this is probably why I don't remember, like necessarily who has sent me messages like that, but I know like within recent times, it's been a few white ladies. A lot of times I ignore it, like it
Yes.
doesn't exist. Like it doesn't exist. You said what?
Mm-hmm.
Like again, the Mariah Carey what um meme. I don't know her.
Right.
Who? Like or I'm really short.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really short. It might be a two-word answer. It
So
might
that's your
be
version of the
three.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very dismissive.
Yeah.
But most of the time I may not answer. I'll say it like, like it's
Hmm.
still it's staying up there. Whatever I posted, I said what I said,
Right.
and that's it. And then for other folks, and I think I already said this, but you really need to go inside of yourself and review why you would send someone a message like that. Like,
Mm.
what are your intentions? And why what you sent wasn't helpful.
Right.
Like, it didn't help a situation. It didn't make it better. Like, you just annoyed somebody. Like, you annoyed them. And I'd be the type of person that I may not answer you on, like, in the DM, but if I see you in person, I might say, don't ever send something like that to my DM again.
Ooh,
Because
thank you. See,
but that's because I'm in person. I say this all the time. Like I'm on Twitter, Facebook, whatever, social media. But I don't say a lot. But if I see you in person, best believe
hmm
I say it. It might
my
come off like why
better,
did you cat?
better do it, my Aries queen. Ugh.
I don't play around with words too much. I truly don't. If I really feel like it's something that has to be said, it's like don't. Why'd you send it to me? Don't send dumb stuff like that to me.
Right. I
Like what
mean, the
did you
thing that
mean by
one of the
that?
things that I appreciate about you so much is that you are such like a classy embodiment of nuck if you buck.
Hey, look, if you look, next. Yeah.
No, it's true. Like I admire that so much. Like I've had moments where I'd be like, "What would Regine do?"
I'm too, and I want to be. It's so funny. I also working on being even more straightforward because I often do think of people's feelings
Right.
and want to make sure that I'm not, too rough and so forth. So sometimes I might refrain from doing something
Mm-hmm.
because I'm like, oh no, they're not going to take it well. But then other times, stuff like that, I will say that, like, why did you send me that?
Right.
Like, I didn't need to see that. Why are you sending me that?
Right.
Like I will, if I feel like it's important to take care of or handle.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, for things like that, folks really need to sort of just be mindful. Like, why did I send that? Like, why was it so important?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
was this
What compelled you to want to police that person?
exactly?
What compelled you to feel like you needed to exert some sort of control or chastisement energy over them? Because it's never a call in, or in my experience, it's not a call in. It's just uh like a I like you hurt my like it's a it's a whine, it's a whinge. You know what I mean? It's a complaint.
Yeah,
It's tears. It's just tears for no reason.
yeah, and it's not you're not asking me to unravel anything because we
Right.
talked about that, like unraveling privilege, unraveling misogyny and so forth. Like looking at yourself um, about things that you do and how they affect other people. That's not what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the invitation that they're extending.
Right.
Um, what they're saying, what they're saying is like, I don't like what you said.
Mm-hmm.
You need to tell me and justify to me why you said it,
Right.
and don't say it again because it hurt my feelings. It's like no, and again, it just seems like at least within the past 4 months, and probably before this, yeah, definitely before this. Like it'll be towards something that has to do with like race
Mm.
or or misogyny, like things along those lines. It won't be like, why did you post that recipe? It won't be on something frivolous. It really will be, it'll be on something of that nature. It'll be something like something you posted about politics.
Right.
I'm saying you, I'm saying proverbial you. That's what it'll be on. It
Mm-hmm.
won't be on something that's like for entertainment's sake.
Yeah.
Like, why do you like Star Wars? It won't be that.
Mhm.
It will never be that. It'll always be something that's pertinent to
Right.
society.
Right. Hey, girl, I don't know what. I don't. Yeah, we gonna see. I guess we gonna see how it goes.
But I
I
think the
mean,
self-care in that is, I'm just sorry, just want to say real quick, the self-care in
yeah,
that
do
is
it.
probably possibly ignoring people. And also maybe confronting them, like, don't send me that nonsense. Go read.
Hmm. Well, one thing that I've been doing in certain in certain things is that I'll just be sort of heading it off at the pass. Like I'll put something that I'm just like, this might be incendiary. This feels like spicy Pisces, and so in it I'll just be like, you know what? Argue with your mom. Don't argue with me. Like I'll just say it. Like, and if this triggers with you, go have a fight with yourself in the mirror. Stay out of my DMs. And there was even something I put up on the TL because you know I like to sometimes like I'll reference things and I don't like to explain things for people, you know, because in my experience it's like I've seen things where I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna Google that, you know, like I even put it up today. I put a little piece of Chica's Tiny Desk concert on my TL and didn't say who she was, you know, that kind of thing, so on and so forth. And in the past, like there have been people who would be like, who is this? And it's just like, or you could sleuth that shit out for yourself. Why are you asking me to do this for you? And so there was one thing that I posted some weeks ago where I said, you know, I was just like in the caption, it was like something, something. And this is an amazing opportunity for you to like generate the search for yourself rather than asking me to do the unpaid labor of explaining references you don't get. So it's like now it's this thing where part of the adjustment is like you have to sort of like head it off, you know, like you have to do this thing where it's like this preventative kind of move where it's just like, I know that some Yahoo out there is going to be like, what is this? When you could just look it up on your own. And there are some people who have no problem being like, it's blah, 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 blah. I'm not one of those people. I have a Scorpio rising. I enjoy mystery. I enjoy not necessarily telling people exactly what, you know, a thing should be. It shows up in my writing too, which is like a way that like it feels like, you know, Elder Zora is just like, don't make it easy for them. It doesn't necessarily like, you know, you don't necessarily have to make it like what if you're allowed to make your writing as chewy and as challenging as you want it to be? And if motherfuckers don't like it, oh well. Like you know, so it's just like, when do we as Black women, as marginalized people, get to, you know, enact those like even artistic, right, and creative freedoms, which actually, now that we're almost out of time, kind of brings up this interesting thing about Black is King, right? When do we get to enact that sort of thing, right? And be allowed to just like let it be. And that's not to say like be safe from critique, right? It just feels like I'm really ready for the level of critique to be divorced from this thing of how dare you African bedwench. Like how dare you not cater to me? How dare you not do, how dare all of your input, or how dare all of your output not be considerate of me? How dare you not make this for the white gaze? How dare you use AAVE? And how dare you get upset that we would use it and mangle it and sound like fucking dicks because it's not for us. And it's the kind of thing where like, if it was the sort of thing where it was treated like an actual like dialect, or even, I would even go so far as to say like an actual language where people studied its rules and studied the way that like it works, right? But no, because it's Black people, well, it's slang, well, it's this, well, it's blah, well, it's street talk. If you even give Black people the props for coming up with the shit. If you even get that far. But we're not even getting that far now. Now it's just like, oh, it's Twitter speak. No, it isn't. You took that shit because it sounds cool, And because you motherfuckers feel like you are entitled to taking everything. That's what that is. So, so I'm really excited for that time. I'm really excited for when we can create a thing and the critique is just for the artistic sake. And it is like normalized, like just blackness, right? And marginalization isn't marginalization, right? It actually comes to the center of the page with all the other shit, with all of the like whiteness that we have been convinced is like the pinnacle. When to be honest, is it? I don't know. I've read a lot. I've seen a lot. I've consumed and digested a lot of creative output from a lot of different people. And I got to tell you, all I'm going to say is the blandness tracks through various mediums.
True.
The blandness tracks. So I'm really looking forward to that day when there really is an equity in how we receive creativity. When and I joke about this, but I don't really, when like, not every single thing that is put out by a Black person, like has to be excellent. Like, is there, like, I told you about that thing that woman tweeted that one time where she was just like, mediocrity is my freedom dream, right? Like that we just have so many, that we just have as many opportunities, right? That it doesn't have to be that everything has to be like, this groundbreaking thing. That there can be stuff where it's just like, that's middle of the road. And so when I see things, like Netflix shows or whatever that are created by Black women, I'm just like, that's actually not that great. It sort of like opens my heart a little bit because I'm like, yes, we get to be not, like not everything has to be
Oscar worthy.
Yeah, not everything has to be excellent, And I'm saying that as a person who's like, whose technology is toward excellence, but because we talked about the whole thing with the ancestors and both sides and how I'm snooty, but and also we deserve to have the space to fucking stumble, to not do it right, to be able to, look back and be like, and that's not to say that doesn't happen, but I really, really want to like just I'm so excited and anticipated for a time when like it's not so caught up in you have to be the voice of your race. And the thing you said speaks to all Black people. Mm-hmm. You're speaking for all Black people. And if you're not, and that's why in some ways I appreciate Kanye. Oh. In some ways. In some ways. Well beyond now you're just setting up things for Black people to get hurt. But it's like the misanthropic sort of aspect of him, like that one little, like if we pulled out the one thread away from all of the like, all of the things that are kind of heartbreaking about that man's situation, it's just like why, and because there are so few opportunities for us to have platforms, it's just like, then you have this situation where it's just like, where are the other voices? Like it all gets, like there are enough of us out there, you know what I mean? There are many black actors, Black authors, Black comic book writers and artists, doctors and da-da-da. There are all of those things, but it's just like, there's not as many, there are a lot of us, but there's not enough, I think, because of all of those barriers to entry and how motherfuckers love to keep a gate closed, right? That like the richness and the fullness and the variety, right, of the conversation isn't there. Correct. So the fact that we have to keep saying Black people aren't a monolith, the fact that we have to keep reminding people of that is indicative of the continuation of the issue.
No, it's true. It's true. So that's definitely something that we can expand upon for next week.
Let's do it.
Definitely do it. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about San Diego Comic-Con, but we'll do that next week. But in the meantime, thank you everyone for listening.
Wait, pause. Hold on. They can hang out for 3 more minutes. What have you got going on this week, Regina L. Sawyer?
No. What do I usually have? Week. Well, I know I'm recording a panel for a
Oh,
convention that's coming up this month called Metaverse, and that's happening. I think the weekend of August 15th.
hot, hot.
When the panel is, I mean, well, the panel and the show is happening. It's a show from Reed Pop, the same folks that do New York Comic Con, C2E2, and Emerald City Comic Con.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I need to be writing on a script this week. I have to finish up this piece I'm doing for an anthology. So there's that. And of course, I'm always updating the Women in Comics website. Y'all check it out, womenincomicscollective.org. We have some great new membership plans. And we also have a ton of benefits. Like we have art supplies that are discounted from Blick Art.
Mm.
We also have some discounts on legal services and PR services, and we have meditation services through Beat Close It Open and Arrow.
Do.
I know. We also have some fitness discounts as well. Just a bunch of stuff. Like every week, there are companies that want to partner with us and want to give services to our members at a discounted rate.
I'm actually looking at our thing right now. Yeah, it's on there. Should we give? No, I'm not gonna put out the code just for any old Tom, Dick, and Harry to hear. You tell your people. You tell your people. Um, I love that. I love that you always got things going on out here, just being a whole business,
Look,
woman.
trying not to work for the man. I'm,
Hey, baby.
I'm not trying not to be in any man's office.
Hey, baby.
Man,
Listen.
woman, non-binary person, doesn't matter. Here, I'm not going to be in the office.
I feel that.
Any human, I'm not sitting up in your office.
Listen, look, listen and look and hey and hi. I love it. So what do I have going on this week? I'm actually working on the newsletter I want to get out this week. Dips, what else is happening? We're going to do our live meditation definitely on Sunday. We're going to do our lunchtime meditation on Zoom tomorrow. And, speaking of websites, I'm still working on mine. Still trying to get that tiered session pricing like on and popping. In the meantime, sweeties and darlings, if you're interested, we are offering the Love in the Time of Corona sessions, which is, what is it? I want to say like $30 for 30 minutes. I will tell you, and I feel like Regine can attest to this, I am not a person who is just like, and now it's 30 minutes and we're done, because I feel like that feels patriarchal. So it's the kind of thing where it's just like, like you'll get the minimum of the time you pay for, and sometimes you'll go over because it's just like, even that is like putting, a structure, like a patriarchal structure on something that is very much flow. So I say all that to say, if you're interested, you want some one-on-one time, check it out. If you're someone who's hearing this and you have very deep pockets and you want to create a situation wherein you donate sessions for marginalized people, hook that up. There's info about that on my Instagram page in the highlights, or there will be. Because I feel like it's really important for all of us in this time to be armed in some way. And not everybody is inclined to walk around with a ninja throwing star. Not everybody is inclined to walk around with a stun gun or a knife, but we can at least have energetic armories, or like energetic armature or just be protected in that way. So that feels real important because we are under attack. And I feel like, it doesn't behoove us to like love and light our way past that truth because it is true, so that's what's up with me.
Okay. Great.
Yeah. Yes. To leave it on a real high note. Woo!
I know. So thank you for stopping me. But from closing out, but now here's the official closeout. Thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll see you again next Wednesday. Take care and be well.
Woo!